Ongoing is probably the most powerful keyword in Marvel Snap at this time. Now, each keyword can make a great deck, but what we've seen historically since the game has started is that there's always a bunch of ongoing decks at the top of the meta. And if you're not familiar, ongoing refers to an ability that persists on a card until the end of the game. Hey everybody, I'm Drew Barry, and this is my ongoing Snap Evolution Guide where I'm going to take you through pool 1, 2, 3, show you some decks, all of the cards that have the ongoing tag, and give you some tips to win some cubes. Let's get to it. So before we swan dive into some decks in each respective pool, let's have a look at every single ongoing card currently in the game. And to my surprise, there's only actually 38 ongoing cards currently in Marvel Snap. I thought there was going to be a lot more because they're so frequent, so common in a lot of decks. Compared to On Reveal that has now 100 cards, this is a very small amount. Now, for clarity, I just want to say that this is only cards with the ongoing tag in its text. So there are cards like Spectrum that technically doesn't have an ongoing ability herself, but she gives benefit to ongoing cards and does have that tag in her text, so she counts here. I find the curves kind of interesting because there's not a lot of powerful cards. I think it makes sense. You can't put too much power on a card that's going to have a consistent effect, especially if that's a positive effect. There's some anomalies here, like Red Skull, who has 14 power, but he's giving all your opponent's cards at that location plus 2 power, right? So that's a negative effect offset by his high power total. But for the most part, it's 5 and under. Like that's really all they got going for themselves. And the curve for energy is basically down the middle. There's a lot of 3s, a lot of 4s, but there's only 2 6-drops. Only 2 6-drops in the Marvel Snap with the ongoing tag, and that is Onslaught and Spectrum. So keep those 2 top dogs in mind because they are key staples in a lot of decks, and you're going to see them come up a lot in this video. So let's jump into Pool 1. So Pool 1 actually gets 19 ongoing cards off the hop, and probably the strongest ones in the game. So it's a fantastic start to get a good deck going. We actually have 2 here, and it's based on both of the 6-drops. We have Onslaught and Spectrum. So the Onslaught deck that I have listed here, I think is one of the best that you can run early on because it's basically a zoo deck. You're playing a lot of 1-drops as much as possible. And then you're going to buff it up with Kazar, who's giving +1 power to each of those 1-drops. Blue Marvel, who's giving +1 power to all of your cards. And then Onslaught, whose ability is to double the ongoing effects of cards at that location. So if you hit that on Blue Marvel and you hit that on Kazar, boom, you got a huge boost in power. Just like in this example right here. So turn 5 was just wrapping up and I had played a bunch of 1-drops, but Grand Central is going to play a card from each player's hand to that location at the end of turn 5. We both get Onslaught from Grand Central, so that's crazy. He's doing the same thing as me pretty much with Blue Marvel. But I have Kazar already there. I've got Blue Marvel. I've got a lot of 1-drops. I'm going to play another one, destroy one of his 1-drops, which is going to really hurt his power total. And I have a few cards hidden behind the Dark Dimension, but that's okay. It doesn't even really matter that much because the buffs are just insane. We're going to win the left just on power alone from Blue Marvel. Electra's going to snipe that Iceman. Mr. Fantastic's even coming out giving bonus power. Rocket's actually even going to trigger his ability because he's afterwards. He's revealed second. And boom, so much power. So much power, we win the game. On the other end of the spectrum, so she has her own deck, and we're actually going to evolve with this deck as we proceed in the video because it has pretty well become the top meta deck. But it starts looking like this in Pool 1. And the idea is simple. You want to stack a bunch of ongoing cards as much as possible, and then you're going to play Spectrum, who's going to give +2 power to each ongoing card that you have on the field. She's an on-reveal ability, so she's not going to receive the buff herself. One of the sneaky parts about this deck is that your opponent thinks that you filled up that location. You can't get any more power there. I'm just going to get a little bit more than what you currently have, and I'll beat you. But the surprise with Spectrum is going to give you, if you stack 4 ongoing cards, let's say, 8 power. That's a huge swing that they probably didn't math up in their heads. On top of that, you have cards like Iron Man. Iron Man essentially is going to get 4. And then if he's paired with any other cards, then they're actually getting 4 as well. So he can get a bigger swing on that turn 6. But it really doesn't end there. There's a lot of other good cards here. Cards like Devil Dinosaurs run a lot in some heavy hand decks. Professor X is a fantastic control option. Cosmo's always returning because he stops on reveal effects. And then we even have Enchantress here, who denies all of these cards because she removes ongoing abilities of cards at a location. But let's take this Spectrum deck and evolve into Pool 2 and see what it has to offer. Not a lot. It doesn't have a lot. There's not a lot here. There's only a couple of cards. Pool 2 is the smallest pool in the game, okay? And there's only 4 Pool 2 ongoing cards. And to be frank with you, it's quite underwhelming. So Morbius is going to get +2 power for each card discarded this game. Ebony Maw actually can't be played after turn 3. And when you play him there, you can't play any cards at that location anymore. Very restricting, but high power. Sandman's going to make it so that you and your opponent can only play 1 card per turn. Very difficult card to make use of, but when it works, it really works well. And then there's Warpath. So Warpath is a 4/5, and if there's an open location on your side of the field, he's going to get a +4 power, making him a 4/9, which is really good value. But when we look at our deck, there's really not much to shuffle up here. We do get another 1-cost ongoing card, which is decent, but it's a bit weird because it's Ebony Maw and we want to stack a bunch of cards there. Basically, what I like doing with this one is if I can play one or two other ongoing cards and then Ebony Maw, then maybe I'll have enough power to push through. And that can be my 3rd location, my least focused location, because I'm not investing that much energy in it. And my opponent's going to have to figure out a way to get more power there. So they're going to commit resources while Ebony Maw is just chilling. But to be totally honest with you, this deck doesn't shine in Pool 2 as much as it did in Pool 1. It's until Pool 3 does it get absolutely out of hand. So let's evolve to Pool 3. So check it out. So not only is this type of deck so good, it has 2 different versions that are both at the top of the meta. You have the Wong going deck, and Fireworks is kind of just a little side handle that I gave it, but basically it's a Destroyer Spectrum combo. We don't really have an official title. This deck has come out of the blue and is absolutely destroying, yes, pun intended, the meta. So let's look at the cards first. So we have quite a few interesting ones. Mojo is going to get +6 power if that location is filled on your side and your opponent's side. Invisible Woman's going to hide all the cards played after her at that location. Goose won't allow players to play anything that 4, 5, or 6 costs at that location moving forward. Cerebro is going to give +2 power to each card that is the highest power on your side of the field, and that can affect multiple cards. Rogue's a nice little counter. She's going to steal an ongoing ability from a card at that location on your opponent's side. It can be great when you steal, let's say, Devil Dino's effect. Absolutely rob the game. Patriot, if you haven't seen my no ability guide, well, go check it out because that is Patriot, basically. He's one of the best cards in the game. Mystique's going to copy the ongoing ability of the last card you played if it had an ongoing ability, so timing is important there. Electro is going to give us +1 max energy for the rest of the game, but he has the ongoing ability of only being able to play 1 card for the rest of the game. He can be a bit tricky to use. Then a few other notable ones are Wong. So Wong is going to make it so that your on reveal is triggered twice at that location. That is an ongoing ability. And then you have Sarah, who's going to discount your hand by 1. That's an ongoing ability as well. Bonkers. So going back to the decks, we just talked about Wong. We've already talked about Spectrum. Can you see how they work together? See, Spectrum is actually an on-reveal card, and Wong is going to double the on-reveal effects. And if we're already filling the rest of the board with a bunch of ongoing cards, then giving +4 to each one of those is going to be an insane turn 6 that our opponents are not going to see coming. Now, mind you, this does have its counters, but there's a lot of cards here that aren't from Pool 3 and could honestly be replaced. We're putting in Quinjet, not because he's actually going to give us value from his effect, which is when we put a card into our hand that didn't start in our deck, it gets discounted. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. He's an ongoing card and he's cheap to play. So we'll put him out there. Mystique is nice. If we can somehow copy one of these abilities, even Captain America's, Mr. Fantastic's, Wong's, really any of these that she copies is great because all of a sudden she becomes an ongoing card. But the ones to be competitive if you're in Pool 3, in my opinion, is you kind of need Wong. He's a central piece to this deck. Maybe you could replace it. I've seen a friend of mine replace it with Namor even. But for the most part, you really just need Wong to make this deck work. It's very similar to our Pool 2 and 1 editions, except now it's made a really big leap forward in power. For example, check out this pretty insane Wong-going clip. All right, I got to set the scene a little bit. So I've been setting up a lot of ongoing cards, just like we should, right? Mystique actually copied Captain America, but that's not a big deal. The deal is Bar Sinister is in the middle, and I can play Spectrum. So normally I'd like to showcase the Wong into Spectrum, but you can kind of get the idea of what this does, but kind of times 2, because we're going to get 4 Spectrums, which is 8 power to all of our ongoing cards. My opponent does have a nice thing going. He's trying to do some movement plays, but for the most part, I'm feeling pretty comfortable. He plays a multiple man. He plays an angel. He clearly didn't have anything in his hand, but was hoping he had enough power to win the game. But boom, watch that. We just got 2 to all those cards, but it's going to trigger 3 more times. So there's our 2nd Spectrum, our 3rd Spectrum, and then our 4th Spectrum. Now this won't happen every game, but it happened this game and it was really cool and I wanted to put it in the video. All right, and then we have the Fireworks deck, and really what this is, it's a combination of 2 decks. There's the Destroyer deck that I showed off in my Destroyed deck evolution guide, and then there is the Ongoing deck. And if you put them together, they actually work really well, because Warpath and Professor X can lock down a location, you can win it, and Professor X is going to protect those cards. So if we play anything, Lizard, Captain America, Ant-Man even, doesn't matter. You play those 2 cards, you probably have enough power to win. It's locked in. And even if it isn't locked in, even if you somehow lost by like 2, 4, 6 power, whatever. So once it's locked in, then we can play our Destroyer elsewhere. Everything's protected, and we just hope we win the other location with 16 power, and we're set. Now the alternative is you can Spectrum. We don't have any way of ramping. So if you do end up ramping, it's probably from a location and you can play both, and that would be great. But that's not the idea here. The idea is to just get Destroyer out, or the alternative win con here is to play Spectrum and just do our basic thing that we've been doing since pool 1, buffing those ongoing cards. So it actually really just comes down to the flexibility of this deck. And again, this doesn't take a lot of pool 3 cards. You got Mojo in there, but really you don't need them. You can place them with any other ongoing card. And the only one that you're looking at from this list is Destroyer. That's all you need. And you have one of the most top meta decks in the game right now. Now, I don't have a clip on this one only because I plan on showcasing this deck soon, so stay tuned. But I do have some clips of the extra decks, and they're pretty fun, so let's get into those. All right, now we're into the spice, the fun stuff, okay? So you got Omega Tall, otherwise known as Exodia, or just any of those crazy things. So the reason I called it Omega Tall is because basically you're stacking one location. And what you want to do is get Onslaught onto Omega Red and maybe even Iron Man or something like that. And basically Omega Red, he's going to give +4 power to your other locations if you have 10 or more power than your opponent at his location, right? So you're winning by 10 and you're golden, you're going to get widescreen buffs. You do that again with Onslaught, you get 8 power across the board. And then if you have Iron Man, you guarantee that you'll have more power than your opponent at that location, because Onslaught's going to double the doubling of Iron Man's ability. So it gets insane. It gets really crazy. And I think there's even more to that. Binks is the one that kind of made this really famous, and he's awesome. So go check out his channel. But I do have a clip of one right here where I was able to beat out a turn 4 Infinite. Yeah. Check it out. All right, so my opponent was playing a Lockjaw deck where it swaps cards played at that location for cards in his deck, and he got Infinite. So I was at the location that I'm trying to snack with Omega Red, but it doesn't even matter. Doesn't matter, guys. I got the nuts. I got the combo. We got Omega Red, Iron Man, Onslaught. Iron Man's even just having a good time with +2 power from Wakandan Embassy, so we're feeling great, okay? He's going to play White Tiger. It's going to shoot out a Tiger. That's a pretty good play. It's even going to swap in and swap back for a Hulk, but it's no worry because we're going to trigger Omega Red's ability twice, giving enough power at the right to win and 56 on the left to win that location. Now, this is only a small part of what you can do with this deck. It gets insane sometimes. The only thing I want to say about that deck we just looked at is that it's a bit of a meme deck, very inconsistent. It's not one to rank with cubes, but it's one to develop a crazy moment. Then we have Cerebro too. So if you got Cerebro early on, this can be probably one of his better decks, I think. So it's a lot of the 2 cost stuff and also 2 power stuff. That's the important thing here. But the idea is you're going to give +2 power to all these 2 power cards, and then you're going to Blue Marvel, making them 3, and they'll still retain that buff from Cerebro because they all become 3. It's a universal buff with Blue Marvel. Then there's some tricks with Storm, because you can Storm location, play all those things there, play Cerebro later, and then get those buffs, and then your opponent didn't compensate for that. Brood is a fantastic option because it summons 2 Broodlings that have 2 power. Same with Mr. Sinister, who adds a clone with 2 power. So all all these things, get a lot of buffs, and it can get pretty out of hand. It's a decent deck. But like all Cerebro decks, it falls short if you don't draw Cerebro, so it's a bit reliant on that. But I do have this one final clip, which was really funny. Let's have a look. Okay, so I flooded the mid location because I had Cerebro and I knew it'd be able to match his power. He got a big Vulture in the right location locked up, and I know that I can buff that location. He can't play anything there. He's only got one spot left and it's turn 5. I'm not even worried about it. I'm going to play out my hand, which means I'm not going to play anything on turn 6, but I know I've won because I played Goose. And that means he can't play a 4, 5, or 6 cost card at that location. And I'm pretty sure he wanted a Heimdall somewhere, but now he can't. He can't even win the Shadowlands. I don't even know if he can play a card at all. We got a bunch of Cerebro buffs. I mean, he maybe could have played one card, but he'd have to play 10 power, right? Because of the draw factor. So it was just a lose situation for him because there's no card under 3 with 10 power that he probably had in his hand. So there's no way. So I snap, I give him the thumbs up. I see if he's going to do anything, if he's going to play out this insane game. But no, guys, he's not. He realized that was checkmate. That was a Cerebro Giga Brain play. Just read his mind like Professor X, and he was out of there. He retreated. It was gone. It made me laugh. When do you ever have a game where you just straight up pass turn 6 to win the game? Crazy. All right, and the last deck I have is the Sarah Burst deck. I haven't done so well with this, but I still genuinely believe in it, and it is at the top of the meta according to a few sites. And the idea is you just want to play Sarah on turn 5 to discount your hand and then play as many cards as you can. And with this deck in particular, you want to play a lot of discard stuff so that your hand is empty by the end of the game and Strong Guy gets his buff. And that's really the idea. You have your beneficiaries like Angela and Bishop to get all that power from all those cards you're playing, and you try to win the game that way. But guys, that is going to do it for my ongoing guide. Thank you so much for watching. Snap subscribe if you're not already subscribed. We're doing daily Marvel Snap content. We got top 5 Fridays, custom card Sundays, new location Tuesdays. It's all fun. It's been great. I'm loving this game. I hope you are too. And I will catch you guys next time.